Gaia.
Wonderful. So very special welcome. Hira, we're going to do the most amazing, or take the most amazing journey today through the bliss source carrying and what it means and how to activate it. So I'm very excited about doing this with you. we're really looking at the opportunity. So for those of you that are listening to us that are coming here live, so both Hira and myself, Altair, we are going to bring both the mystical, the scientific, the creative, the tantra of the heart, the light language, the kind of abilities and powers that source bliss carriers have. We're going to bring those really right home and explain a little bit, hopefully, of not only some of the ways that you can do this and access this, but also the ways that science is starting to back up this, what ancient mystics and creative practitioners, shamanic beings have known right from the very beginning. So, Hira, it's always wonderful to do this with you.
Yes. Exciting.
Exciting. So I'm just gonna kick this off with a little bit of discussion about the experience itself, about source bliss carrying, and just perhaps what some of the scientists neuroscientists particularly have discovered when they look at source bliss and particularly source bliss mystical experience. So one of my favorite researchers, Hira, has been Andrew Newberg, who's in fact in charge of one of the medical centers at Philadelphia University. So he has for years looked at what it means to energize source bliss. What does it mean to have a really deep experience and how to access it? And he identified these 5 aspects of source bliss carriers, or the deeper and profound mystical and spiritual experience that many of you I know listening are going to be able to relate to. So here you go. One is that when you get in these states, when just as Hira is in now, that there's a real deep sense of intensity. So that's number one, that there is this power. Source bliss carriers feel that intensity. They have a genuine sense of this deep and intense and rich, empowered life that they're living. And that's very intense, right? If you're listening and you feel this strong sense of purpose or wanting to find purpose or wanting to access that source, that is truly the first characteristic of a source bliss carrier. The second is the sense of clarity, that things get really, the colors get clear, your brain gets clear, your heart gets clear. Like whatever it is, you want clarity. You want to don't deal with all that that stuff that seems to be flying around the world at the moment that's causing lots of confusion. You genuinely want clarity. And as a source bliss carrier, that quality of your experience becomes really incredibly clear. The third one is the sense of unity. We just start to do away with all those divisions, just as Hira and I spoke about in the very first podcast that we're doing, that in the older times there was these sense of division, sense of lineage, sense of religions, but now there's this real deep urge for unity. We're actually feeling right across the planet. We want to reach out, we want to connect, we want to interconnect and have this really profound, deep sense of unity. And so the fourth one is a sense of surrender. You realize that to go to source, to sit as source, you need to learn to relax, sit back, open up, that it's no longer about your narrow concept or identity or form or past or future idea of what you think this is all about. You actually genuinely surrender. You genuinely open up to this extraordinary bliss and source that's starting to power through, and it really kicks in. It opens up, and to do that, you surrender. You surrender to you surrender to isness or suchness or what's vast. You're no longer bound by this narrow sense of identity. And then the first one is this deeply transformational effect. So you have source bliss characters feel incredibly transformative. Like we feel a sense we're in touch not only with each other, but with all the masters, guides, guardians. We're literally starting to channel and open to information, masters, guardians, dakinis, angels from other realms. We recognize that our family is not just confined to a physical earth family, that we have this genuine, extremely broad and incredibly connected source bliss carrier community that is transformational, and it allows us to access subtle realms at all kinds of different levels, many different dimensions that start to open up to us. So those of you that are starting to feel that you're accessing different dimensions, or that you're accessing pure realms, or you're actually receiving downloads or information or light language transmissions or guidance from angels or deities or dakinis or dakas or yidams or any of that kind of connect, you're truly starting to tap into that transformational effect of being a source bliss carrier and accessing other realms. So I'm going to hand back to, that's just a little, I'm pre-framing this a little bit, and Hira is going to talk a little bit about some of these experiences, and we're going to go back and forth about some of the ways that you can access this.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, I wanted to jump in about 50 times already, but
I know. I just thought, I'll stop. Stop.
I fooled myself. I was like, oh, I'm really good. Because that's one of the things about the bliss for me as an experience, because when you said intensity, that's really it. It's like a download, you know. It's like someone says something, and I'm so much in that bliss download channeling, you know, kind of energy, that instead of hearing your words, I'm downloading all kinds of information and visions and feelings, and you're right, the colors are completely different. Like it wasn't like this 10 years ago, but now, like when I sit and I just, for example, watch the, you know, the Tibetan or something like that, everything changes. Like I just like see the colors more brightly, even like the how to say that, but it moves in and out. It's like it's not 3D, it's 4D, it's 5D. It moves in and out. It moves closer and further away. It's like, you know, it's not, you can't even just see it on 2D anymore. It's just like it becomes even bigger, smaller. It's hard to put in words, but so yeah, so the feelings of it, the way it feels is, I would say it's like this. It's like, it's not fixed anymore, but it's like more color, more intensity, especially the intensity. I would say like it really rises. So some people, my friends, for example, will tell me like, you're so intense. I can't, you know, they can't even like, after 10 minutes, they're like, okay, I'm going to do something else because I'm so intense. I'm so, you know, present. And they're like, can't you be more grounded? You know, and then I'm like, okay. And then I, you know, I just really get myself centered and breathe more into my belly and just like really, you know, get more into that more earthly flow than the bliss. Not that the bliss is not earthy, but somehow it brings these higher centers and so much stimulation and so much activity that yes, I'm very much here and in my heart. But also, I mean, the bliss also can be accessed through the lower chakras, which is basically where, for me, the bliss motor is. You know, it's like the lower chakras are giving that energy to the heart, it's giving the energy to the third eye. And that's when it really becomes like really interesting, when the whole kind of central channel puts itself into this kind of bliss state. You know, I don't think it's only, well, that's not true. It's also possible only through the brain. Like, for example, this Tantra of the Heart that you were just speaking about, it's like a method that we teach in my works, the Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshops of the School of Remembering. And we learn through the Tantra of the Heart, meaning with the tip of the tongue, we are stimulating a specific area in the mouth, which actually connects the heart to the brain. So actually the heart and the brain are starting to make love to each other. It literally is like they're making love to each other. And then what happens is that the pituitary gland and the pineal gland connect to each other. You are actually even like turning the pineal gland forwards. It's the third eye, basically. Looking through the third eye. And then when everything aligns up and you're in your heart, then, you know, something magical happens. It's like the bliss of the brain is activated, or the alpha waves basically are active. We work with the Tantra of the heart. I mean, there's many different ways. That's why we're setting up these calls, because we want to really get into all the different ways that, because one way for one person doesn't work for the other. So we really want to get into that. But the Tantra of the heart basically really works with the brain, but it needs to be connected to the heart through the Tantra of the heart. When you stop stimulating the roof of your mouth, or you stop doing the Tantra of the heart, they're not really making love to each other anymore, and there's a disconnection, and then that state of bliss doesn't work. But you know, as Stephen is saying, there's many different ways how to enter in the bliss. I know that I've just tipped on a few things here, but as you can see, I'm very intense, so I go from here to there, from here to there. I'm sure there's a lot to go into there, but
I love that. Yeah. And look, exactly as you're talking about, Hira, with the bliss in the brain, you know, it's interesting when you're talking about, it's intense when you talk about the heart and the brain, and the heart making love to the brain and so on, because in fact, they looked at the brain and the brain, particularly in bliss. There's been research that's been shared in magazines like Scientific American, for example, where they spoke about the bliss, and they found that during when you're making love, that the actual right hand side of the brain lights up. So it lights up during orgasm, it lights up that whole side of the brain, the right side. So you could say that's kind of the sexy part of the brain, is this right hemisphere, and that it becomes extremely active. Now, you know, people, when they're talking about the left and right side of the brain, because you often think, okay, the left is like active when it's connecting with happy memories and so on, and the right side is really interesting. It is connected to shamanic practices. So if you're on a plant medicine journey and you have a really deep connection with shamanic practices, it's probably the right hand side of your brain that's being activated. If you go into a bliss state, just as Hira was saying, and you feel that connection, like your brain's making love to your heart and your heart's making love to the brain, then it's potentially going through a very similar kind of situation to an orgasmic experience, where that right hemisphere actually lights up. In fact, they did these studies, beautiful studies of people that were making love, and they discovered, since you've talked about it in that manner, they discovered that a lot of the cortex went dark and left this right prefrontal cortex lit up like a bright island. And I thought, oh, of course, you know, if you're in a really deep tantric experience with a partner, then you're actually potentially lighting up that part of your brain. And then I'm going to switch suddenly to nuns and say that in some really famous pieces of research by Beauregard and other very well-known neuroscientists, who over the years I've had the good fortune of connecting with, they discovered that mystical experience also lit up that right-hand side of the brain. So the Tantra of lovemaking, of the heart and the brain, does something when the Carmelite nuns were connecting with God and felt truly one with Source, felt that they were the Source bliss carriers and were experiencing bliss. And it was coming through sometimes as the voice of God, or they'd hear Jesus's voice, or they'd hear angels, or feel the presence, and be overcome with this bliss and be saturated with. That also lit up the right-hand side of the brain. So there's this really deep connection between what you're talking about, the heart-brain love, and mystical source bliss connection. So I think it's really pertinent, because once we start to talk about the neurophysiology of the body, we start to see some of the importance of these practices like Tantra, like chanting, really deep devotional chanting that really activates that love between the heart and the brain. Because I love the way you said that. It's like a good way to see any of these practices. When you're in a drum circle, and so I was trained as a drum circle leader some years ago, and I just love getting in rhythm with people and having a big group. And again, it's like the heart and the brain are loving each other there, and then you're doing it collectively. There's this rhythm, there's this beat, like the heart, and you tune in with other people's hearts. And all the research that's been done with the Heart Math Institute shows about inter-brain synchrony, that is actually a happening thing, that the brains light up in the same areas when we're starting to make love, so to speak, but through music, right? That's a whole paradigm that, I loved back in the 60s where they would say, make love, not war. Well, yeah, that's because they're talking about connecting the heart and brain, and at really deep level, that's the power of it. And that would potentially solve all our problems. We just need to put our world leaders in a drum circle, and say, hey, actually, you guys are discussing this all conceptually. Why don't you get around a big fire out in the desert? Come on, let's put all the world leaders. We'll give you all a drum. We're just going to hammer away together for like 6 hours, and you're only going to speak when you're in your heart. But if you start trying to speak about all these concepts and trying to solve stuff like that, you're simply not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally true. And also when we dance, right? It's like it's a state of a trance, you could say, like the trance state of like you are in your heart, you're perceiving the world from your heart. Like you spoke a few times about the Pure Lands. I would like you to elaborate on that a little bit more. It really is like the world we perceive from the heart is really a different dimension than the world we perceive from the brain. It really is different. And it's really only when we can connect both together that we become these, powerful co-creators that we are. I mean, we can do it without the brain and just from the heart also, it's not like you're thinking about something when you're drumming or you're dancing or doing something like that, right? So yeah, and the dancing I find a very nice way because also last year I did the Ecstatic Dance Festival in Holland, and this year I will do it again, like opening the dance floor there. So with a guided meditation, go into the dance. So it's not only just a dance, it's not only like, oh, I'm just hearing some nice music and I'm just letting myself go. It's like you combine it. Like last time we did something with the 5 elements. This year I don't know what we're going to do, but maybe we do that meditation of going in the heart first, in the sacred spaces of the heart, in the physical heart, bring our center of awareness there so that we're breathing, feeling, living, dancing from there, which anyway at a certain point happens naturally. So there's just to say that there is natural ways, as you're saying, making music, dancing, painting, swimming, going out, like making love, like all these things that we naturally already do, bring us in these states of bliss. So it's nice to understand for everyone that we are speaking about something which is natural to us.
Yeah.
That's what I always say in my workshops as well. People come and they're like, oh, this method and this and that. And, and they go really into the practice and stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. The method brings us into a state, but the state itself is just natural. It's just, we don't need to necessarily use that method. We can just, as you were saying in the beginning, relax, surrender into the unity. What does that even mean? Surrendering into the unit. It just means like leaning back, right? It means don't use so much willpower. Don't use so much mind. Don't use so much goal directed. A little bit, sure, to give it some structure, but it's more about just completely leaning back in the moment as it is, like just completely, falling back, you could say, into, surrender mode, into the unity consciousness, where we indeed like connect to all these different deities, and we call it God, but I don't like that word so much. You could call it divine source. That's what all these talks are about, like the source inside. So it's not that hard. It's just a matter of how can I get myself into that state, which for one person works in a different way than for the other, and then it's a matter of maintaining it. Because I mean, this morning I woke up, I didn't wake up in a bliss state, huh? I did not wake up in a bliss state at all, even. So, what do you do? What works for you? What is your practice,
I love that. Yeah, well, in fact, you mentioned the Pure Ram, so let me dive into that.
Yes, please.
For a moment, because I think that's very, so what happens when you wake up in the morning and you're not in a bliss state? So And we know that you could, of course, reach for your drum, or you could start to chant, or you could just rest back and go, right? But there's also the possibility that you could access the pure realm. So let me just talk to you a little bit about how I do that and how potentially you could do that. One thing I've often shared with people when they ask how do you access the pure realms? Well, one thing to do is the moment you wake up is to potentially see your whole room, your whole place, the whole space you wake into as a Buddha field, a pure realm, a Christ field, a Magdalene field, as a field of the tantra of the heart. Right now, to do that might sound, so one way I do is I walk into supermarkets and I see everybody as the Buddha, and I see everyone walking, or they're a mother of compassion and they're walking on lotus flowers. So that's one way to do it. But let's just say you wake up, right, and you're not feeling that you're in a bliss state. So a really simple way that you can do this is to tune into this primordial awareness that everything in your environment is a Buddha field, that everything in your environment and every aspect of it, including all the beings in it, your pets, your children, your partner, your friends, your dad, your mum, whatever, that they're all celestial beings. Now, in order to do that, one of the ways that we can actually connect with that is this sense of wonder, this sense of awe that everything around you. So you can do this now, like as you're listening to Hira and I, don't look at your screen. That's the first thing, because I want you just to check into your environment for a moment. And what happens around us, if you look out at your environment at the moment, you're looking through your ordinary eyes, you're probably just looking, saying, well, yeah, there's some walls and there's a space and there's whatever else, there's the boundaries of your computer, right? So just be aware of that first and foremost, right? Because that's part of how we are going to move from this very sticky object-based conceptual awareness into going beyond that. So in fact, we know somewhere deep down inside of us, we know that the space, for example, so instead of going to the objects for a moment, just connect to the space. Just as Hira said so beautifully, see if you can notice where you're, so I'll give you quick guidance as to how you could do this easy. I want you to just notice where you're breathing from. This is the first easy point to seeing everything as a Buddha field or a field of Magdalene and Christ. Just notice where your breathing is happening at the moment. Might be in your nose, might be in your heart, might be in your belly. Now, as soon as you do that, something slows right down.
Wait, Altair, can you take your plugs out, because I can't hear you very well when you speak.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Is it a little bit better?
Yeah, same here. Sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
better. Okay. Yeah, it's probably even going. Okay, so if you just tune in again, so tune into where your awareness is guiding you. Are you breathing in your nose, or are you breathing in your heart, or are you breathing in your belly? So notice that first. And just start to shift awareness for a moment. So if you're in your, just begin to breathe in your heart. And on the inhalation, because we're working as source bliss carriers, on your inhalation, just say to yourself, I. And on your exhalation, say to yourself, am. And then on the next inhalation, say, a source, bliss. And on the exhalation, carrier. I just feel into this sacred quality of the breath, awareness. It's so easy. So you're just saying I on the inhalation, am on the exhalation, a source, bliss, or a bliss. And then on the last exhalation, carrier. There's a sense of flow, right? You're literally carrying source and bliss on the breath itself, no matter where it arises, in your heart, in your nose, and your belly. And then try sending your awareness to the right rear corner of your room. And look down at your body sitting there. And you're still aware from that right upper rear right corner of your room. Still breathing. I am. Right? This sense of being a source bliss carrier is so simple. Because you're carrying the bliss. You've never been separate from it. And then drop back into your heart, because as Hira's been saying, it's all about this making love with your heart to your mind. You want to send those feelings, feel into that connection of the heart and the mind. So kind of drop down into your heart again. Feel that presence. I am. It's this I am presence. I am a source bliss carrier. You're just breathing it. There's something that happens when you connect to breath like this. There's a sense of time dropping away. It's just simply timeless. The inhalation, the I, has a little more effort perhaps, and the exhalation is surrendered. The inhalation, it's just a little bit like a dolphin spout. You're just bringing that energy in. And the exhalation is letting it go, surrendering. So in this one simple movement, you're involving both an activation and surrender. So tuning deeply into being this source bliss carrier. And as you tune into this, become aware of the extraordinary feeling of freshness and innocence that every single breath you take has, that it's sacred. Every breath is a sacred love breath. Just as Hira said that, heart making love to the mind, here the breath is making love to the body. It's like every breath in is literally filling you with love. And you're just resting as source, and you're drawing this breath of love in, and then you're surrendering it to on the exhalation. So there's a sense of purity, this pure realm. It's right here, all around you. Something remarkable happens when your consciousness, your awareness just fills with this purity of love, filling you and surrendering to the love all around you as you breathe out. Right? There's a purity that's happening. And so with your eyes closed first, feel into the space all around you in your room. Visualize it internally as a pure Buddha field or a Magdalene field or a Christ field. That start to recognize its natural purity. Right? Space itself has no boundary. It's got no limits. There's this vastness that's present. There's this vast field that encompasses all reality. It's got no boundaries. It's got no limits. And also if images arise, images of the Buddha or Magdalene or Christ or Yeshe Sogyal or Guru Padma Sambhava or any of the great beings, Tara, Kuan Yin, angels might arise. If anything arises within this pure field, because it is pure, allow it to arise. You might even see the glorious copper-colored mountain, Sangapolari, the paradise of Guru Rinpoche. You might see Mount Meru. You might see a time or a place or a space not of this earth. Because the Buddha field itself is not composed of ordinary earth, but of energy and nectar.
Just around you, feel into what's present. There might be wish-fulfilling trees of all color, shape, and form. There could be lakes of nectar-like water that confer immortality and life. There might be wild animals, mystical animals might arise in front of you, dragons, beings that don't exist in this physical dimension, but exist in the multi-dimensional realm, and that here behave in harmony with the purity of your consciousness. Whatever arises is actually reflecting back to you the purity of your perspective, of your awareness. You might hear birds carrying the sound of Dharma or the teachings. It's as if their calls are singing to you. You might hear natural sounds of water and wind and fire and forests reverberating as mantras themselves. They might sing with Om or sound like heavenly choirs of angels. The sky might be filled with rainbows or darkers or bikini skywalkers. They might be limitless. If you see an angel, or if you tune into a dakini, see if that dakini multiplies millions upon billions of times across the cosmos as your consciousness unfolds. You might hear celestial music, vajra songs. You might hear melodious tunes of mantras or prayers or hymns resounding, bringing this bliss, this source-carrying bliss to your mind and heart. These aren't separate from you. These are your awareness pointing to you, pointing right back to you. All the nature and appearance of your purity in whatever form it arises, dakas, dakinis, angelic beings, celestial beings. We're all companions on the path. We're not separate from this. They're all behaving in accordance with your own awareness and with what's awakening to you. And in this Buddha field or Christ field, we see everything as free. Nothing's better or worse. It's just opening to the same infinite loving kindness and equanimity that's present all the time in us all. And as we hold in our minds here, like we're doing now together, this visualized Magdalene field or Tara field or Christ field or Buddha field, our manner of perceiving the things around us gradually changes. Slowly open your eyes a crack at a time. Do it very slowly and view now the walls of your space or the space around you with those pure Tara eyes or that pure Magdalene presence. Like my room takes on a rainbow hue, which is something I've seen since I was very little. Doesn't look like how often other people describe it. It's very rich. So feel into the richness and the freshness of these new eyes where you're perceiving everything as pure and you're able to see the paradise of awareness, of pure consciousness everywhere. So even your walls shine back at you, smile back at you with this sense of profound awareness. Just as Hira was saying, with this incredible intensity of life, your whole room might feel more intense, more sacred, more alive. If you open your eyes and you see images, for example, or Buddhas arise, or you might imagine you're in a temple and on the walls of the temple there are frescoes or art or painting. And quite often I get light orbs and flashes of light that appear out of the walls themselves. When this happens, your devotion deepens. Your devotion increases, the power of your source, bliss, light magnifies. Because your awareness is inspiring this intensity. You're starting to realize, however you wake up in the morning, you have a choice to actually see beyond. And as you start doing that, the first thing in the morning when you wake up, you just feel into awareness itself, this pure realm that's always present. That as you start this practice of visualizing your very place like a holy temple, like a sacred temple, like as you move throughout your day, then that paradise starts to awaken in your mind. It's actually generating the pure realm in your awareness. And then what happens, just like it's happening now, in your mind that's making love with your heart, in your heart that's opening and filling the mind with pure forms, then pure realms arise. We start to see the beings around us as displaying Magdalene's body or Christ's body or Guru Rinpoche's body or Yeshe Sogyal's body. The sounds we hear sound different. They feel sacred, like a mantra. The voice of our loved ones sound like the voice of Magdalene. They sound like the voice of the Mother of Compassion or a Christ. And the thoughts that start to arise in our mind are not the 60,000 thoughts we had yesterday and the day before, repeating over and over again. They start to occur and arise in our mind as this pure display of perfect wisdom of a Buddha or a Christ. Because the very moment you started to relax and sit back and rest as a source bliss carrier, your perception shifted, just like it is now. And you're starting to perceive how things have naturally been since the very beginning. We know this is an illusion all around us. You know that in 100, 1,000 years, this room that you're sitting in is not going to be the same way as this room exists now. We know that it's always changing, that it's impermanent. But our vision persuades us that what we see is fixed. We don't see the impermanence, and therefore we don't see the emptiness. Emptiness meaning the infinite potential of whatever is around you to move, change, and be open to that limitless, boundless transformation. And therefore we don't really see into the nature of mind itself. So what you're starting to perceive is that there is a primordial purity as a source bliss carrier. There is a genuine primordial purity that you can access every morning and every night and any other time you wish to during the day. And that you start to understand and recognize the true nature of all phenomena. And you start to uncloud this mistaken perception of things and people, because we have our judgments, right? When you think of a friend, think of somebody, if you bring to mind now somebody you've been having a sticky problem with, you tend to judge them, right? Oh, they're this, they're that. We don't see their innate purity. But when you rest like this, you rest back as a source bliss carrier. And you start to uncloud that mistaken perception, where we think that people's stories are actually who they are. Now you're starting to perceive beyond that. And instead you start to connect to the innate purity of all beings, of all things, and especially of your space that's right here. Just by that really simple, practical exercise. So Hira, I'm going to pass back to you. That was just a very simple, since you did ask about pure realms, I couldn't.
You went for it. I want to share my experience because I don't want people that are doing this meditation with you to have the feeling that they need to see something. Because you're, yeah, it's just that, for example, just what I saw, there was no Buddhas, there was no, no dragons, and, and I do work with dragons, so I could wonder like why they are not there. Basically, I was not looking for an experience, because that's usually what happens, right? I'm just really saying this for the people that are not used to any of this of what you're introducing here, you know? So it's like, then you're like, oh, I don't, you know, okay, dragons, okay, wow, you know, and then you start looking for it, which obviously is going to block the pure experience of just resting in it. So I've just been resting in what you were saying, and then slowly it was like there was more golden light, like even around my computer there was a little bit of a shift of, you know, and the walls, like as if there's a little bit more of vibrancy, or a little bit more of golden light, or a little bit more of, and there was this feeling of peace, you know, like a real deep feeling of peace that was kind of saying to myself, like, you don't need to have a different experience than what you're having right now. Meaning, I don't need to see, feel, sense Buddha, Christ, you know, all these beings, because then again, I'm just kind of looking for something outside of myself, right? So I just wanted to share that because it came through, like I could feel some people tuning into the meditation, really trying hard. And I was like, okay, no, you know, just rest. So in that sense, if you recognize that you have been doing that, do it again, put it, you know, now it's alive, but after it will be a recording. So you can just do it again, listen again to Altair, but this time, like from this place of, I don't need to do anything. I'm just going to rest and listen and just open myself up. Mostly about opening up, I think. It's mostly about like really opening up to that pure realm, as you're saying. And for me, it was super helpful that you were saying, you know, in the morning when you wake up, you can. I was like, it's true, it's true. I allow myself too much to indulge into the negative vibrations that I wake up with. And it's not even my fault. You know, it's like we're on a planet right now where so many things are happening. There's war, there's this, there's that, you know, all these the dark light games that I don't want to go into too much. But our bodies are feeling it. Our physical bodies are feeling it. We are experiencing that war. We are experiencing all these, and our body feels it. So that's what I feel in the morning. It's like my body is like, you know, it's like a reset. It needs to. I know you don't have the same experience probably, Stephen, because you're, you know, you're always in your lucid dreams, the clear night dreams and stuff. But I go into that dreams of ignorance, you know, the sleep of ignorance, bomb, and I literally know I need it. I want to go into that unconscious state. I literally know I need it because that's where I process, and that's where. And then when I wake up with this feeling of, and I have like these flashes of insights, like bomb, bomb, bomb. I understand things, you know, and then I wake up to my body, and my body is like, wow, okay, here we go for another day. Let's do some practice for at least an hour. Whether it's yoga, meditation, whether it's, you know, and then I slowly get out of that super heavy energy. So, but it's good to know that, yes, I'm kind of still indulging in that. I could just kind of like go into, like, immediately when I open my eyes, say, okay, I want to see, feel, sense. I want to be the pure realms, and let that help me even before I go into meditation and yoga and all these things. So.
Beautifully said. And I do think, you know, your point about resting as you are, that is so crucial. As a source bliss carrier, you are a source bliss carrier. Everybody that's tuning in, you are a source bliss carrier, right as you are. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to generate anything. The whole point about resting as source and opening up to that bliss is then all those descriptions that I was giving you, prompts of this, that, or the next thing, they will arise just in their own accord, in their own natural way. Because just like at the moment, when you're resting as you are, you see a wall, you see curtains, you see windows, or whatever you're present to, or objects on the wall. In the same way, as you learn to really rest in this open and vast source, and just simply rest with whatever's present, then that naturally will, and effortlessly, will give rise to whatever is spontaneously present. And then You know, as a friend of mine said the other day, when she did experience a dragon face looking directly, she said, I wasn't trying. You know, she said, see, I wasn't trying, but it just came straight at me. It looked at me and it was like right there. She said, I was astonished. So those are the moments that you recognize that with practice, you learn how to surrender. You learn how to just sit back. You learn how to open up. And then when you open, all of your pure perception will actually give rise to whatever's present. Just as Hira said so beautifully, there might be a gold tinge to your awareness. There might be, like my friend had a dragon. There might be, like, as other friends of mine experience, movements in the physical body. There could be, might feel like you're dancing in the body. And it also might feel like you're very still. You might feel like there's a stillness or a spaciousness or a silence. All of that is perfect. The key is not to try, because the trying becomes the obstacle. The trying actually prevents you from being just who you are right in this moment.
Right, and the trying can be so extremely subtle that you're not even aware of it. You're just like, no, I'm relaxing right now. And you're not aware of the fact that you are still trying to reach something or be something that you're not, or be something different, or, you know, it's so ingrained in our society and, you know, and the way that we look at the world, that it can be very subtle, this trying. So kind of like deliberately saying to yourself, I'm going to just stop trying and searching for this moment, can really help, because that really brings you back into yourself. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I really, you know, this particular practice that I was sharing with you, as you said, Hira, I have a lot of dreams that actually point out practices to me, and this particular practice came from a dream through Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche and Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche, who I was up on the roof. In the dream, I was up on a roof, fixing the roof with Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche. We were just thatching his roof in Tibet, and it was a brilliant, you know, it was very clear. And he said, don't worry, because I'd been studying with Sogya Rinpoche, and he said, I'm going to send you another teacher, you know, don't worry, it'll all, you know, just relax. I'll send it. And sure enough, Mingyur Rinpoche came along the day after I had that dream. Mingyur Rinpoche then came and sent me a message in a dream. So I thought, maybe that's the person that Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche was talking about. And then, of course, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, also in my dreams, gave me really clear pointings like this of how to actually work with awareness. So I've always been intrigued over the years, even to the point, Hira, that the last couple of weeks, I met with a PR person, you know, who was wanting to bring me clients. And she said, so how do you get your clients at the moment? And I said, well, actually, it's really funny. I said, 3 people I don't know actually reached out to me on the internet because they had dreams about this person, me, and the particular goddess or yidam associated with me. So they searched it on the internet and they found me, and they said, look, I don't know why. I've been directed to you in my dreams. So then I kind of got connected with people through this very unusual medium of people having a pointing in a dream, just like I had with the lamas. And the other one was with plant medicine. I've had people in plant medicine journeys that I don't know reach out to me from right across the world saying, we were in a plant medicine journey and this deity turned up and said, contact Altair. So I said, sure. If that's the way I'm going to be found. So I'm very aware of the practicality of the pure realms, you know, in terms of the way that when we allow them to, this community of deities and dakinis and so on actually work with us on as you well know, Hira. They're actually genuinely really present for us, especially at this time, as you said, when so much is happening on the planet.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm hoping that this has been a rich and valuable conversation for everybody listening. And I do want to, and as I said, look, if any of you are interested in some of the research that I mentioned at the beginning, so I'm just going to mention that again, so Dr. Andrew Newberg, who currently is the professor and director of the Research Marcus Institute of Integrative Health, he's actually done a lot of research on nuns and monks in both Christian mystical traditions and also in Tibetan Buddhist practices. So if you look them up, you'll find a lot of the information related to what Hira and I were talking to today, especially about what Hira spoke to so beautifully in the beginning, the intensity of experience. So if you're listening to us, because that was really the first point we were making about this, as you as a source bliss carrier, if you're feeling this intensity, then that's a really great sign that there's a really deep, intense, and powerful shift that's happening. And that's what he spoke about too, that in fact, in EEG studies, they noted that there was these really rapid shifts that Sufi, just as you mentioned with dancing, Hira, that, Sufi whirling dervishes would actually go from very high bliss states where their brain, especially areas like gamma or theta, were very high, and then suddenly they'd dropped out. There'd be a complete drop or shift one way or another, either into very high or even different frequencies in the brain and different rhythms in the heart, where they were open to these really incredibly transformative experiences, where, just as you mentioned, where by simply being present with that chanting or dancing, just that, the simple presence of being just as you are where you are, they would open to the incredible transformative power of being a source bliss carrier.
Yeah, so this is something that we can give as a homework, right? Like until we speak next time, maybe in 2 weeks, maybe in 1 month, we see how we feel. So that everyone that has been watching up until now, until the end, I would say, you made it. So now you can take that with you by just every time that you kind of become aware. I have this little trick. Every time I become aware of my awareness, you could say, I kind of congratulate myself. It really works because I can get caught into my thoughts. I can get caught into my feelings, especially my feelings. I mean, oh my gosh, I just get into the roller coaster and it can take a long time until I get back into, oh yes, I become aware of my awareness and I really bring my awareness inwards, you could say, to its own nature. So it really, everything relaxed. But this could all be a little too complicated. All you can do is, like, as a homework, is just to become aware of where you're at. Like, I'm feeling this, or I'm thinking this, or just like that the awareness is there, and then just rest in that moment, like kind of just as simple as you said. We can say something like, I am source. You don't even need to say I'm a source bliss carrier. You could just say I am source or I am bliss, and then you just kind of like, tune into the moment. Like, I'm giving kind of contradictory kind of a message here, because on one hand I'm saying just relax in the moment as it is. You're not changing it. You're feeling what you're feeling. You're thinking what you're thinking. You're just aware of it, and that awareness will bring you back in bliss. And on the other hand, let's say you're in a really negative mode, or you're really negative thought or something like that, then you can kind of bring yourself back by saying I am source, I am bliss, and feel it, when you're saying, not just I am source, I am bliss, and just say it, but kind of like really going into that, like, I feel it, I am source, yes, I am bliss. And then slowly, feeling wise, because the feeling is your guidance system, then slowly bring yourself in self-guided, self-parenting back into that bliss. So I think both things work, just relaxing in the moment, or just kind of helping yourself by saying I am source, I am bliss. And then and it's nice, we have some really sweet comments here, people saying that it's beautiful. They thank us both, Amy here, fantastic. So it's really nice to feel also the presence of the people that have been with us today.
Beautiful.
And, I'm looking
Well, yeah.
forward to the next
Oh,
one.
wonderful. Well, all of you listening are truly source. And just as Hira was saying, you can get it down to such simplicity. Might be just that you say, I'm source, then I am, then just the breath. And it's so true, Hira. And I think what you're pointing out about, sometimes for everybody it's different. Some people it's really easy to relax as source. They just put their hands on their heart, feel and they drop and rest. That's it. For others, they need to energize, have a mantra, dance, chant, whatever it is, and then rest. And that's exactly the same as most of the research that I was referring to. They speak about the power of raising the energy and then the power of resting back and surrendering. You said that so beautifully, Hira. So I love it.
You're saying everything so beautifully, Altair.
Very beautiful. Well, everybody's so beautiful.
It's a great honor, and thank you so much. It's amazing.
Oh, it's an incredible honor for me. The honor is just reflected back, Hira, and to everybody listening. It's such a blessing to have you all here listening to us, because we feel deeply moved that you take the time and sit with us, sit in presence, sit as source, breathe as love, just sit and rest with us. Just be, what a great opportunity just to be love.
I think I'm gonna dance. Okay, thank you everyone. See you next time, or in 2 weeks, or in 1 month, same time. Sweet. So sweet.